Yo, Nick, aren't you a Lakers fan? Why are you repping the Knicks?
The Knicks are my second favorite team. You've watched my previous videos, right? Because I have stated that before. I've been rooting for the Knicks too since Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, and Marcus Camby were on the team.
What's good, everyone? It's Nick, and I know it looks kind of weird to see me repping the Knicks, but don't worry, I still bleed purple and gold, but the Knicks are my second team. It's always been that way, and that's not going to change. But before we begin, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And here I am with my first in-depth New York Knicks video. Also, rest in peace, MF Doom. This really had to be the last foul act of 2020, and for me as a hip-hop fan, and I actually did once consider doing hip-hop reviews on YouTube. In fact, I might still do that one day down the line, but I decided for now to stick to sports. But as a hip-hop fan, I'm very devastated by the news about MF Doom, so rest in peace, MF Doom, and my heart goes out to MF Doom's family. But now that we got that out of the way, now cue the intro. Okay, so the New York Knicks are 3-3 on the season, and not looking like the worst team in the league like many people predicted. Now, I also had low expectations for this team myself going into the season, but how could you not, right? It's the New York Knicks. They've been a joke for so many years. They haven't been fun to watch since I was a teenager. And those few years that they actually were fun to watch, when they had Melo, and also Amari Stoudemire before the 2011 lockout, it didn't even last very long. For once, the Knicks actually took a step in the right direction. They actually didn't do anything really stupid this offseason. Yeah, they've set the bar so low that not doing something really stupid is actually a step in the right direction. They didn't make any big splashes this offseason. The last big splash they made in the offseason was when they signed Amari Stoudemire. Melo was traded mid-season, a day after the 2011 All-Star game, so that's not an offseason splash, so we can consider that the last big splash they made in general, but in terms of the offseason, they haven't made a big splash since Amari Stoudemire, and, well, this free agent class wasn't really stacked anyways, and we knew that Anthony Davis would re-sign with the Lakers, but just not doing anything really stupid. That was actually, for the Knicks standards, impressive. But for an offseason move that they made that was actually a great move was hiring Tom Thibodeau. Now, I had my doubts myself as to how he's actually going to connect with his players. Now, don't get me wrong, Tom Thibodeau in Chicago was excellent. He may have had questionable rotations. However, no one's perfect, right? And for the most part, Tom Thibodeau was excellent, and also as the Celtics defensive coordinator during their championship run in 2008, and still being there as a defensive coordinator for the following 2 years. When he went to Chicago to be the head coach, that's when Doc Rivers started becoming exposed as overrated. But why any of us actually had any doubt that Tom Thibodeau would work with the Knicks as a defensive-minded coach with great success in the past? He was supposed to turn around the Timberwolves defense when he was in Minnesota, but the exact opposite happened, and he just didn't mesh well with the players. And even with Jimmy Butler, who he coached in Chicago, came in, and the chemistry just wasn't there. So that's what was a concern for Tom Thibodeau coming in, because with the young Knicks team that's nowhere close to playoff competition, or at least wasn't expected to be anything close to playoff competition, it was a concern, but he's actually doing really well so far. Now with the Knicks, Tom Thibodeau is looking like the best coach that the Knicks have had since Pat Riley, and the coaching staff as a whole is looking like the best they've had since Jeff Van Gundy's coaching staff. I started catching on with the Knicks when Don Chaney was the head coach, and yeah, that was not a good time. They haven't had any good years outside of 2011 to 13 since I started watching, but even then, yeah, Mike D'Antoni, even though they had an amazing offense in 2011, and then there was Linsanity in 2012, yeah, the defense was a huge problem. They brought in Tyson Chandler. They became a respectable defense, but then they had chemistry issues that season in 2012, and also Amari was no longer the star player he once was. In 2013, that was the best season that I got to experience watching the Knicks. But outside of that, it just hasn't been good. And even though they had a great year in 2013 with Mike Woodson at the helm, still, I don't look at him as a good coach at all. There's a reason why he got fired after the 2014 season. So yeah, Now, with Tom Thibodeau, it's looking like the Knicks are actually headed in the right direction, which is something that we haven't been able to say in a long time. And this season, with a revamped Eastern Conference, it looked like there's no way the Knicks could be any more competitive this year than they've been in the previous few years. First 2 games of the season, the Knicks got embarrassed by the Pacers and the Sixers, and it just looked like the same old Knicks. But then they beat the Milwaukee Bucks by 20 points. Beating the Cavs, okay, yeah, although the Cavs are 4-2 right now and Colin Sexton is on a tear, but let's not overreact to 6 games. This applies both to the Knicks and the Cavs, but Sexton is looking like a beast. And then against the Raptors, the Knicks couldn't even throw the ball in the ocean. They were 3 for 36 from 3. But this win against the Pacers, this was a very impressive win against a very good team that I myself felt like after the first 5 games, yeah, I slept on them, but the Knicks beat a team that's been playing really well up to this point in the season. Now, I know I've already said this like 3 times, but just gotta say it again. We definitely cannot overreact to just 6 games, but the fact that the Knicks are not looking like a joke right now, we can still enjoy this, at least until they do start looking like a joke again, right? Now I'm going to get on to the players. I'm going to start with Julius Randle, who I got to watch plenty of while he was on the Lakers. And now again, I don't know how many more times I'm going to say this, but let's not overreact. But it's only been 6 games. But in these 6 games, he's been playing really well. Against the Pacers, who went into this game as the 4th best offense and 7th best defense in the league, Julius Randle didn't shoot so well, going just 5 for 16. However, he did get 11 rebounds and 8 assists. He did also shoot 2 for 5 from 3, which is 40%. He's only a career 30% shooter from 3, but this season, he's shooting 50%. Now, I don't think that's actually sustainable. That's only a small sample size. He's looking really good right now. He's right now looking like a more explosive, left-handed, and sharp-shooting version of Draymond Green. Yeah, his defense has been really impressive too, and that's not something that we ever expected him to be very good at, even since the day he was drafted. Next guy I'm going to talk about is RJ Barrett. He had a rough rookie year. He didn't even make the all-rookie second team last season. But he's not someone that I've ever been willing to give up on. I liked his potential even after a rough rookie season. This season he's averaging 17 points per game, but on really poor efficiency, just 38.7% from the field and a true shooting percentage under 50%. However, against the Pacers, he scored 26 points on 8 of 15 from the field. I do think he has a good future ahead of him. Probably not as good as your ideal 3rd overall pick, but I don't see him being a total bust. Now on to Elfrid Payton. He looked horrible in his first 2 games. But since then, he's done a total 180. For this season, he's averaging 13.5 points per game on 49% from the field. But the last 4 games, he's averaging 18.5 points per game on 55% from the field. I don't know if this is really sustainable though. I think he'll be more in between what he is now and what he was in his first 2 games, but closer to what he is right now. Mitchell Robinson, another Knick I have to talk about. After he put up 16 points on 8 of 10 with 9 rebounds and 2 blocks, those 16 points are almost double what his season average was going into this game. Now, I've always liked what he can do as a rim protector, being someone who can catch lobs and get putbacks. Much like DeAndre Jordan, he was 6th in offensive rebound percentage last season and 8th in offensive rebounds per game. 6 of his 9 rebounds against the Pacers were on offensive rebounds, and he got putbacks on 5 of them. He led the league in blocking 3s last season, and he blocked 1 in this game too. Austin Rivers is another guy who had a noteworthy performance for the Knicks, scoring 15 points off the bench against the Pacers. And as for Kevin Knox, I've already come to the conclusion that he's a bust, and he didn't prove me wrong in this game. Hopefully he can prove me wrong, but I've already been convinced that he's a bust. But hey, I'm not here to complain because the Knicks won and they're looking impressive. A lot more impressive than I think most people, including myself, thought they would look. But now just to talk about the Pacers a little bit, Malcolm Brogdon did score 33 points, but Domantas Sabonis, who so far this season has looked like the player that his dad should have become had he been given a chance when he was still young and healthy. But this game, he only scored 13 points. He did have 13 rebounds, but he only took 8 shots, and that's not what you expect out of him. Victor Oladipo, who's played like he's regained his all-star form going into this game, he was abysmal, going just 3 for 16, and he was 8 for 11 from the free throw line, but other than that, he couldn't even buy a basket. So we'll see how the Pacers do going forward. No Defense, who I think is a very underrated NBA YouTuber, I think you should check him out. He did a really nice video on the Pacers, which I'll leave a link in the description for, and they didn't look like that against the Knicks, the team that he did a really good job at showing what they've been able to do this season. But yeah, the Knicks were able to beat them. So regardless of how the rest of the season goes for the Knicks, this is definitely a high point in the Knicks season, for sure. But now, just on another note, this is totally unrelated to the Knicks or this game in any manner. Big apology to John Wall for ever doubting that he could be anything close to the player he once was after tearing his Achilles and not having played an NBA game in 2 seasons. But he's looking really good, and yeah, he's proving a lot of people wrong, including myself. And you know what? I'm actually really happy for him about that. But back to the Knicks. The culture that Tom Thibodeau has brought into this team, it's really showing right now. And even though the Knicks probably won't even make the play-in tournament this season, they might actually compete for it. And going forward, the Knicks might not be in such a bad place after all. That's the end of this video. Please remember to like, and if you haven't yet, please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time.